Hundreds of residents of poor Cape Town neighbourhoods have lost loved ones in tit-for-tat gang attacks, and now they're seeing army troops on the streets. I'm Femi Okay.
I'm Malika Bilal. Today we'll ask whether a military operation in one of South Africa's biggest cities can help bring lasting peace to communities blighted by violence. Send us your thoughts through Twitter and YouTube.
For years, police in Cape Town have struggled to reduce deadly gang violence in parts of the city known as Cape Flats. That's an area that has been home to black and brown South Africans since the apartheid era. The situation in the flats is now so bad that soldiers in armoured cars are on patrol to help restore order.
Units of the South African National Defence Force began rolling into 10 precincts on July 18th as part of a 3-month deployment called Operation Prosper. It's hoped that the Army's presence will give overworked police breathing space to investigate crimes. But detectives have an overwhelming caseload. 43 people were murdered across Cape Flats in the weekend preceding the deployment. Here's what residents said as soldiers rolled in.
I'm really thankful that they are here, the army are here.
What?
And I want to thank the government for making that good decision. We really need them. Because I mean, it's children, people's dying every day on our streets.
That this new thing that is happening here, it frightens me. I feel like I should move from here and find another place to live. And then I don't want my family to carry on living here like this.
For more on this situation, we are joined from Cape Town's Bontahoville precinct by Henrietta Abrams. She is a community and social justice activist.
Fakir Mohammed is an Imam and community activist. He joins us from Cape Town's Menenberg precinct. From Amsterdam, we have Zianda Sturman. She is a visiting Fulbright scholar who has studied policing in Cape Town.
And Albert Fritz is the Minister of Community Safety in Western Cape's provincial government. He's in Cape Town. Hello, everybody. It is good to have you here. Albert, I want to start with some video. Al Jazeera have been covering the situation in Cape Flats for some while now. This is Famida Miller. She got some mobile video of residents who were living in different precincts in Cape Flats, and they were in their homes, in their neighbourhoods, taking pictures and videos of what was happening around their area. So have a look at this video, Albert. I want you to tell me how accurate it is. Is this everyday occurrences? Let's take a look together. Albert, this looks like a shoot them up video, and I don't want people to think this is every day in Cape Flats unless it is. Is it?
Yes. So that's one part of Cape Town, and as Indrita correctly pointed out, it's really a city of two tales because 10 precincts, you have that kind of violence. It's not all the time, but it's a lot of times, and it's really the reason why we've actually eventually called for the army to come and to be deployed in those townships. And the reasons for that is that the police don't just have any capability and resources to control the kind of violence that was so rampant. I mean, we had the death totals for 2017 was more than 4,000 people who was dead. 2018 exceeded another 4,000. This year we were on the route of going to that. But I'm happy to say, since the deployment and some very, very strong policing interventions, there was a reduction for the last 2 weekends that came right down to 25. Now, 25 is still a lot, but 25 is far less than 55. That's the two weekends ago. So I think it's an important point to say that very clearly, policing and community relationships with the police was completely lacking. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have that, compounded by real socio-economic issues in those communities. Unemployment is rampant. And therefore, it's a very interesting, almost a dichotomy On the one hand, you really want to ask people to come to Cape Town and really promote Cape Town, because the tourists really contribute to job creations for those very people on the other side. And the more we have people visiting, the less we're going to actually get this kind of violence. So it's a very strange, as I said, dichotomy. But I think it's important to have people know that, Cape Town, like any other, when I visit London, Central, it's a different place to East London. Where you
of course, Albert, and it's interesting that you mentioned several things there, and I like the point that you ended on, which is it's putting this in context, because we have people already in the YouTube chat who are watching live now saying, this looks like my own hometown of Chicago, this looks like other places in the world, but it's that reason, seeing the fear and hearing those screams, that we're seeing tweets like this. This is Simanta, who says, maybe the military is the best solution, and that's what's needed to bring order, because these criminal gangs, they don't fear police. I am in support of military intervention. On the other hand, though, adding a little nuance to this conversation is someone who says the army are not meant to fight crime. They are meant for war. If the police and other special forces can't handle such cases, then what are they being paid for? It's time Africa grows up, they write. How long will the army be on the street, and what will the work of the police be? So, Henrietta, I'll give this one to you. The army, clearly, this person doesn't think are the right group to come in. The police should be doing this work.
I'm agreeing with that person. So for me, we have been on the streets marching and protesting for years. For 5, 4, 6, 7, 8 years, we've been marching and we've been asking government, be it local government, provincial government, or national government, to do something about it. What we must understand is that we're going through systemic violence. We're going through structural violence, and government in all its entirety has never done anything. We've been asking for years for them to do a deployment of resources to our various areas, our working class areas, be it on the Cape Flats, be it in another province, to take resources from well-resourced areas or where there's not much crime, to bring it here. We've also been talking about the working class areas that's living in abject poverty. So we don't have jobs, rightfully, as the MEC Fritz have said now. We don't have jobs. We don't have opportunities. We are poor. We are unemployed with not many chances. So our people and our children are falling through the cracks. Not national government, not MEC Fritz government, which is our provincial government, have been putting resources. It's good. Yes, the army is here now. I did not agree with the army coming in, but are here now. So in the meantime, the army can't give us jobs. The army can't grow the economy. Yeah. The army cannot give us trauma counseling. The army cannot give us drug rehabilitation centers, all of these things. So government as a whole needs an interdisciplinary approach.
So Zayanda, I hear you. You're outside of South Africa right now. I'm just going to jump in and ask the Imam, because he's in Manenberg, one of the precincts. Actually, you've got the army right there. Imam, what difference is it making right now?
I just wanted to mention that we understand what the viewers are saying, that the army is not trained for these types of policing. But what do you do as a community? Out of sheer desperation, people has been hoping that perhaps the military might bring a solution. We are desperate for a solution. We need solutions. Like I mentioned earlier on, that this war on the Cape Flats, it's a low-intensity war that's been spiking, then it comes down, and then it spikes again. So it is only out of sheer desperation that communities has come together and gone to the streets and marched to Parliament, because it seems like government has been dragging their feet. And for so many years, it's not a year ago, it's not 2 years ago, people has been calling for the army out of sheer desperation. We understand the fact that the army is not trained to do this, but we were hoping that the military might, like I said, could bring about change, because our people, you've heard the young man saying earlier, he doesn't feel well, he want to get out of the place where he grew up. It's not safe for him anymore. He want to take his family out. We love our places on the Cape Flats. There's good people on the Cape Flats. We can contribute to the development of this country, but our people are not given a chance to do so.
Zayanda, go ahead. I know you wanted to jump in. I just wanted to get the view from inside one of the precincts where the army are literally walking around. Zayanda, go ahead.
I absolutely agree with Henrietta. I mean, I think the really difficult situation here is that, you know, the military will be there for a certain amount of time, for about 3 months, if I'm not mistaken. But what will happen after those 3 months? The same police who are overwhelmed right now are going to be overwhelmed in 3 months. There's been very little done to staff, to resource, to pay, to train police officers in exactly what needs to be done to solve this problem long term. And so I'm not saying that nothing should be done right now. I'm saying that there must be a longer term solution, because we have seen the military before in Manenberg in 2015 for limited operations, and they're being deployed again 4 years later to the exact same area. So we're really struggling with a situation of there not being a long-term plan. And as the Imam says, you know, people are calling for the military out of desperation. This shouldn't be a desperate situation. We know that there is enough political will to solve this problem long term. It's just not being applied.
Zianda, there's someone on Twitter who is on the exact same wavelength of you. So this is Khadija, and I'll give this to you, Albert. A couple of tweets here. So Khadija says the deployment of military forces where there should have been a more responsive police service has not helped anyone. Deployments are temporary. They lack oversight and often lead to greater feelings of discomfort in our community. So I'm picking up on the temporary part of that. But someone else writes in opposition to that almost. Simply Judy says, I believe that the military will be able to root out the rough elements, back up the police forces in the heavily armed areas, and act as a deterrent. Then crime intelligence and the gang unit can continue from there. So this person has the idea, Albert, that the military is there to back up police, and then eventually police will be able to have the resources enough to do the work themselves. Is that feasible?
Yes, so the one point we've always been saying was that, and in fact, we're all on the same page. No one is saying the army must come forever. We're all saying we need stabilization. And I think the Imam put it very, very well. Judy's also saying we need stabilization, and then you need intelligence-driven policing with proper policing capability. Now, you know, it's okay for people to say this or that, and what I'm saying is we're all on the same page. What I agree with Hendrita and with Sayanda is that we must then look at economic development in those areas. We must look at the illicit trade, get an alternative to illicit trade, and get economic development into the area so that we can move forward, that then we will do jobs, that we look at the
So, Albert, I'm just going to jump in here because I'm losing you a little bit on our Skype connection, but we will reconnect with you so we can hear you clearly. Henrietta, I remember something that you said. The authorities are doing nothing. They're doing nothing to help. That is a bold statement. Maybe what they're doing is not effective. For instance, when Famida Miller, who's from Al Jazeera, went to report on Cape Flats, she was looking at some of the initiatives to stop gang activity. Have a look at this, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts about it.
8 months ago, the government set up the anti-gang unit, whose work is to root out gangs, guns and drugs. It conducts daily raids, searching the homes of known drug dealers and drug dens. While the unit has made hundreds of arrests, the city of Cape Town says there are nearly not enough officers. Special operations like this haven't stopped gang violence on the Cape Flats. According to government statistics, the number of murders has increased. This weekend alone, 43 people were murdered, more than half of them by gunshot.
Henrietta, that was about 11 days ago, so not that long ago. Maybe the measures just aren't working.
Okay, what has happened last year? We went to the street and we demanded for a specialized unit, a gang unit, to be deployed, and then we got the AGU. So the AGU started doing their work, and some of our communities have worked hand in glove with the AGU. But then what you found, because of politics in this province, for instance, you had politics amongst the policemen themselves, politics between the local government or the provincial government and national government as to whose competencies are whose competencies. So we, for instance, in Bonteheuwel had to have, on the 1st of April, we had to have a full-time base, AGU base in our area. And because of the politics, they didn't give us the base. So they're playing They're playing games with our people's lives, these politicians. And we are tired of losing our people. The other thing that needs to happen, so we have the police that is under-resourced, but at the same time, the police and the detective and the intelligence services and the justice system is not working properly with one another. They're not working hand in glove. We need gang courts. If a gangster or a criminal is being taken, they're part of this underground or organized crime, they need to be taken to a gang court where the prosecutors, the judges, the magistrates, the detectives, everybody need to work hand in glove so that they deal quickly with these criminals and that they deal with them harshly and take them out of our communities. But now the AGU or whomsoever else of these forces come, they arrest these people. 2 days later, you find the same criminals back into our communities and then taking out witnesses that wants to stand up against them.
Henrietta, let me just say for our benefit of our audience that the AGU is the anti-gang unit. Malika, go ahead.
So we have this from Victor, Imam Fakir, and Victor says the problem is that the military seems to focus on the laid-low gangs. The dangerous times are early mornings where thugs rob people to work and evenings when they are going from work. On those critical times, you don't see the military in Cape Flats. Reading this tweet as an outsider, it almost seems unimaginable and unimaginably difficult. Talk to us about everyday life that people like this, like Victor here, are saying it's dangerous to go to work and to come home.
Yeah, look, that is the reality of the life of people in Cape Town. People, you're not safe whether you're going to work, whether your kids are, if you are in work, you're worried if your kids are going to be safe. You need to check continuously, be on the lookout, be on social media to check if there's any updates. Has there been any shooting reported? So this is the reality that our people live in. And I agree with Henrietta when she mentioned that we need to look at if it means that we need to change the laws of this country. We need all government departments to come together. Our people is aware of the political game that political parties are playing with our lives. And whenever they do something or they implement something, they want their names to be written and they want a point for to go next to their party names. So our people are sick and tired of the political parties. We want the president to step in. We are only going to know that the government is serious when the president steps in. If the president forms a task team across various government departments, education, health and safety, the various departments, correctional services, even if it means that we need to look at reviewing our criminal justice system, whether we are going to look at the punishment that's being dished out to criminals, look at the conviction rate. We need a holistic approach. We need an all-hands-on-deck approach from government in order to win this fight or to effectively have change or to change the condition that the people on the Cape Flats find ourselves in.
Sure, Albert and Imam, there's a historical context that it would be remiss of me if I didn't bring up. It's obvious to you as South Africans, but the Cape Flats area, many of the people who live there now were removed from where they used to live during the apartheid era, and then they were just dumped in that area. Economically, they are still suffering. Obviously, we've seen the pictures of the gang violence. This is really important. I don't want people around the world not to understand this. Albert?
Yes, now let me quickly also say, so that historic is there, and we're moving on from that. I'm one of those people who were kicked out of District 6 in Cape Town, thrown into a community called Hanover Park, one of the big gang areas. But I want to say to the Imam and to Indrita, and Indrita knows in Bondable, we have deployed 100 young, what is called safety, community safety network. Young men deployed. Since the 1st of July, there wasn't one killing in that place, in our own town. So I think it's important. I just want to say to the Imam, the Premier is having a priority committee where all those departments are in and moving into the hotspots to go and exactly provide those services, but in a proactive way, getting young people onto what we call the Chrysalis Youth Development Program. And I tell you, when they get out of there, they go into all our areas where work is given to them.
Exactly. Albert, allow the Imam to have a conversation with you. Imam, go ahead.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, Minister Albert, the reality is, if the political parties about 2-3 months ago, we had the election campaigns, if all the political parties could only give 20% of the time, energy and resources that they put into the election campaigns, if they can shift that energy into the crisis that we're facing on the Cape Flats, then believe me, we can have a solution within 2-3 years. But political parties, you know, unfortunately, they want that points for what they implement.
Perhaps we must just get our political party jackets off and go and work and solve the problem. Perhaps we must do that, and I think that's what
That's what we want to see.
I have a question about. I have a question about why an intervention like the one that you mentioned, MEC, has taken so long. If the DA, for example, has been calling for the military since 2011, why is an intervention like the one that you mentioned only happening now? This is not something that's come up in the last couple of years. It's been through years of neglect from everyone. It is not just one person that you can blame. It is everyone across the board.
I want to jump in.
I just want to quickly say, Diana, one of the problems with this government in the last time, we never publicized our East. But I can tell you, we have 11 youth cafes in this province. Young people have access to amazing opportunities at those youth cafes. We have underground, low-intensity work by our social workers doing trauma counseling in every community. If they were not there, we would probably have had suicides.
I'm sorry, it is not
we are saying the point we're making is that we are work and our work is unfortunately not publicized.
So Albert and Henrietta, I'm going to jump in here because Albert, I hear your point that there are youth cafes and work is being done to engage the youth. And Henrietta, I want your thoughts with this video comment I want to play because someone from our community, her name is Charity Monoreng. She's a PhD candidate in public law in Cape Town. And she says that's exactly the idea we need, but there's not enough money being given to that. So have a listen to what she told us.
It has also cost the country about 24 million rand, which could be used into other resources that will address the needs that young people have in these communities. So my research found that young people join these gangs because of a lack of opportunities, inadequate schooling, lack of role models, and broken families. And if that 24 million could be spent on an integrated response to addressing the needs that these young people have, it would create even more opportunities for them to be resilient to the pull that gangs have.
So Henrietta, do you think that the root of this problem is lack of opportunities?
It is lack of opportunities, and it is also continued apartheid spatial planning. It is also continued apartheid planning where not enough resources or very little resources are being thrown into our working class areas across the Cape Flats. So what you have is that the majority of the budgets are being spent on drawing tourists into the city. It's being spent in the leafy suburbs, and on the Cape Flats, our working class areas are literally still the same as it used to be before 1994. And that is a fact. We're living in an apartheid city, which is looking only after the rich. So for me, in terms of politicians, that is the truth, MEC Fritz.
That's nonsense you're talking.
The politicians
That's the reality, Mr. Fritz.
No, it's not.
They're making promises. When it comes to spending the budgets, then there is no money. Then they tell us Treasury is saying that there's no money. We had the supposed water scare that his party did, and they took 84 million that was supposed to be spent on our CBD, for instance, here in Pontypool, and they took it towards the water, and they made billions with this water.
Mayor to spend 500 million on safety. 500 million. The mayor of Cape Town, just spend that.
So guys, I'm going to ask you all just to take a pause for a moment, because we hear here how not everybody's on the same page as to how you solve a major issue about communities' personal safety. We thank you, Albert, Imam, Henrietta, and also Zayanda for giving us that very candid insight into what is happening in Cape Flats, in Cape Town, in South Africa right now. Thank you so much. Malika?
Khadija here on Twitter says the allocation of police resources is wholly unequal in South Africa, especially in communities of color, so start there.
Thank you so much for joining us. Malika and I will always see you online. We're at AJ Stream on Twitter. Take care, everybody.